Сегодня мы поговорим про методы и средства обеспечения информационной
We'll talk about methods and means to ensure information security that are reflected in Federal Law 187. I will tell you how it's done in Russia and then what they do there in the US. First thing, this is the goal setting. The main driver in Russia is the regulatory requirements. And as we know, and as Patrick said yesterday, so this approach doesn't work well. It's very important to connect cybersecurity goals with business goals, and that approach we use in Schneider. So the priority number one is business goals. Then regulatory requirements that has to be connected to the business requirements, and then the technical environment of it. The threats and vulnerabilities. Important point, what is done in the US and that we don't have at all. In 2014, CISA agency launched a program that's called Secure Voluntary Program. This is a program between the public authority and businesses. It's increasing the education, awareness of organizations, and promoting a NIST framework for improving critical infrastructure. For now, we don't have anything similar to that, and I'm sure that in the audience there are people who would be able to help to promote this program here in Russia, or maybe to launch a similar program in Russia. It's a great initiative, and naturally, the owners of critical infrastructure, they'll listen to recommendations of the state, then recommendations of vendors who are trying to promote their own products. A couple of words about the framework. Framework is very interesting. First of all, it's very easy to understand. Secondly, it promotes a risk-oriented approach. It's probably the key instrument in the world to assess risks and cybersecurity risks. It has 5 functions, and each function is divided into categories and subcategories. And this framework covers a broad spectrum of areas, from simple identification, authentication, and then working with supply chain security and working with media. So it's designed very comprehensively and well, and in each subcategory there are links to international standards, and you can actually choose the most appropriate one for yourself. Clicker doesn't work. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what is a risk-oriented approach in industry? When we're talking about risk orientation, so we're talking about the safety mostly. When IT was integrated in AOT, together with process safety, we started talking about cybersecurity. The question, how to do it? And one of the methods I'll describe to you. There is a Swiss cheese model, different layers of protection. Through this, we'll see how we have failure in manufacture. So the number of layers can be different. In this particular example, we have technological safety, then governance and monitoring, then prevention, easy, then mitigation of failure, response to the emergency of the enterprise, and public response. So that's why when there is a hazard, a danger, so we can go through all the holes and we have a disaster. During the cyber attack, the attacker may influence to the monitoring system And when the system has the protection, it can provide for the most important part of it. So we also have a tree, failure tree. So we have a failure of pressure control contour. So there is a high probability of it. There are several protection layers. It's operator layer. It's 10% that operator may react late. Then another level, technical, is a maximum protection, and then there is a emergency valve. So, for example, if the attacker got to the network, they have access to the control system. First, what they can do, they can create the emergency situation, so 100% probability. If the attacker is experienced, they can block operator work, and operator may think that everything is fine. So this layer is removed. Then the system that prevents it. So if this system, if the prevention system is not disabled, so they can go further. So if it is disabled, so we're in the situation where it's the last protection barrier, it's just 6%. It's catastrophe, people die, and 4% this is emergency shutdown with the downtime for the production and all that. Based on this data, you as owners of your companies, you can at least assess the consequences of a disaster or emergency. So you can show it and say, so if something happens, the loss will be $100 million. So, and the options are clear. So we have the decree 527, it doesn't cover everyone. Many things are outside of the decree, and you as business owners, so the shutdown of the system may cause a big loss. So using this method, you can actually prove to your management that there should be some measures taken into account to ensure protection. Next slide. Often this approach is too complicated, maybe to start with something simpler. Well, first of all, you need to decide what assets are in the risk zone, and you need to prioritize. And then you need to decide, will you be able to continue working if ICS failed, and if you can, for how long, and is it appropriate for the business? So the main question is, what if? So we need to take this into account. Next, who is responsible for cybersecurity? It should be clear in every company, in every enterprise. So ICS is connected to external networks, and they say, oftentimes they say, we have an air gap and we don't have to protect ourselves, but they don't know that during the operations, this system can be hooked, and ICS is absolutely unprotected. Sometimes it can be done through the internet or from the corporate network. So if you say that your ICS system is not connected, so you need to have an answer how you can actually prove that, what measures you undertake to guarantee that the network is isolated. Then remote access to ICS system. So desirably, it should be avoided. But if you still need to do that, so you need to study quite thoroughly how the protection is ensured, what rules regulate it, your internal policies and the regulator guidelines. Do you use best practices? It's important to understand that your employees should know best practices in information security, both in Russia and outside. And are you hooked to the Russian critical infrastructure security requirements? So when it will be fully deployed, so you should be connected to it. It's a great idea. I think it's going to be very useful for everyone. Next slide. And finally, I would like to speak about our proposal for ICS market. So we have the license for that, for the protection of the information. We have the license from Federal Service for Technical and Expert Control. We do all work from consulting to implementing means of security. Our security responsibility goes through the whole DMZ. We opened our demo stand, and you can see it together with ICL, Pastor Iconics. We implemented the different means of protections, antivirus, detection network, firewalls, and many others. We also have DMZ with our recommendations of how to build it. So we realized our ICS with the SOC partners, and we are going to extend our partnership. So we also have integration with business systems, so not many customers can actually do that, but we think that this system will be in demand. And also, we run pen tests of our architecture to make sure that architecture and the approach we use is really resilient, is really reliable and protected, and we can be okay that our system won't be hacked. So thank you very much. That's it.